Welcome back to the Performance Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Amy Calandrino, CEO and founder of Beyond Commercial. I've been doing this for almost a decade and a half, and I have met some impactful and influential leaders along the way. Today, I have Deena Zimmerman, retail powerhouse. Whoop, whoop. And she's kind of become a friend of mine. And so we are going to chat about being a power beacon, her work over, is it Balm or Baum?
Baum. Yeah.
Baum.
Yeah.
Realty. And she does a lot with NAR and all the things. And we decided, we've been so busy that we are recording this like after work, 6:30 Eastern time. So we have
cheers.
Wine.
Mm-hmm.
Which we've enjoyed many together. I kind of feel like this is a little Joe Rogan-ish, actually, like having the alcohol.
It totally is. And, we've shared a lot. I was thinking about this. We've shared a lot of, I think it's when we get our life chats on over a good glass of wine and just, digging deep.
Well, and we think of like so many creative things, and we have like breakthroughs. We've had tub talks. It's been great. And a lot of this like has been just, some of these other social media people in commercial real estate and just other people that brought us like together. And so I'm really grateful to spend time with you. And although we aren't in person together tonight, it's great to be podcasting with you. So, so you've been doing this for 2 decades?
Almost.
Since you've been 12?
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. So let's start. How did you get into this at age 12?
At age 12, slave labor. First of all, thanks for having me. I love you. And this is fun. We have done the Eddie Gonzalez tub talks. We have cooked together and just,
we slay in the kitchen.
We do slay in the kitchen. And that's also great conversation.
Yes.
Right. I mean, you just, you can't manufacture them. It's just be authentic and they all of a sudden come, right? So
and you're like, I'm on protein tonight. You're on garnish. And we just divide and conquer. It's like, no wonder we're so damn good at commercial real estate.
Exactly. We are multitaskers. So how did I get into this? So it's funny. So I graduated from college and I had a degree in psychology. And I thought that I was going to be a therapist. I just really wanted to help people. And I was going on all these job interviews and they were terrible. And I literally interviewed for one. And I, by the way, all the way through high school and all the way through college, I worked at this video store, Superstar Video. It was amazing. I grew up in Rochester, Minnesota. And so we, rented videos and what have you, but we also, there was a sales aspect to it. It was sort of my boss, Ed, was really a visionary, and it was like the red box of the time. We sell subscriptions basically to rent the videos in small convenience stores and so on and so forth. So I would go with him to do this, right?
Okay.
And we'd sell stuff in the store and what have you. So I was working in the video store while I was looking for a job, and one day I came in and I was super disheartened, and I'm like, this sucks. My last interview, they just asked me if I bruise easily because I would have to detain people. I'm like, this is not what I got into this for. And he goes, Deena, I watched you for, how long did I work in that video store? 7, 8 years, like I said, all through high school and college. And he goes, I've watched you. You're so good with people. You connect with them. And, you can help people in sales. And it totally changed my life, Amy. Actually, I got the opportunity. I saw him a few weeks ago and I hadn't seen him in years. And actually broke down in tears and told him he changed the trajectory of my life. And so I wound up selling insurance, literally door to door, knocking on doors, doing that for a few years. And then I moved to Chicago and I wound up working for a real estate trade publication. So I was selling advertising for, to developers in Chicago, title companies, banks, brokers, you name it. And I was hooked. And I'm like, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. I think I was 30, by the way. So we just don't know, right?
No, you never know. I mean, I didn't get into this.
Flailing, especially in your 20s or even 30s or 40s, follow the breadcrumbs and it's going to lead you to just follow your passion and eventually lead you to exactly what you want to do. So I wound up getting my license and the sister publication to the publication I worked for was a commercial pub. And so I helped them, and I got my license, and I'm like, I just want to get right into commercial real estate. And this was in 2007. And we knew a bubble was happening. And this developer that became a good friend and mentor to me was like, listen, there's always going to be up cycles and there's always going to be down cycles. And if you can learn to, learn your craft, and carve your niche in a down cycle, you're always going to be successful. And, here we are with license wise 17 years later, and we've gone through some kind of hairy times, especially in the past few years. And he was so right. And, it's fun now because I mentor a lot of college students, who want to get into commercial real estate. Did you know that? I mean, when you were coming up, did you know this is something we could have gotten our freaking degree in?
Oh,
I mean,
I didn't know that.
Amazing to me, like the opportunities now. And, I have like some of the parents of some of these students I'm mentoring who are like, is this the wrong time for my kid to be getting into this? And I give the same piece of advice.
Yeah.
By the way, this is the best time ever, especially if you're in retail. Finally, we're having our moment. But it doesn't matter because, again, there's always going to be up cycles and down cycles. And it's learning how to weave your way through that and being successful.
Yeah. I think following the breadcrumbs, though, like I never, ever, ever, ever in a million years would have thought of myself going into commercial real estate. I didn't even know it existed.
Me neither.
I didn't even know. Like, I grew up very blue collar, had no idea. I actually wanted to be a meteorologist, and like that was what all my work was. Like, I want to be holed up in the National Hurricane Center because I seem very extroverted, but I'm really an extroverted introvert.
Me too.
Like, I like the quiet times that we have together and those like more deep. I like to go deep. I don't want to like just be. It's fun like floating around at like conferences and stuff, but then afterwards when I come home, I'm like, oh. But anyways, I want to be holed up in the National Hurricane Center and help to improve the predictive technology for hurricanes. And then I ended up working in a law office. So then I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. And then I got to learn a little bit more about commercial real estate there. And then I was like, and then I got really inspired by like small business owners. And I was like, well, there's not really any like brokerage agencies like in Orlando that are like super gung-ho for like, at least I knew at the time, like small businesses. So that was always my goal, to like help small businesses. So yeah.
I think that's the best part of it. Yeah.
And you take, and then how did you end up getting into, you always knew you were going to do retail, right? So you were carving your niche. You already started in retail, or did you start in a different asset class?
Well, I jumped right into retail, and it was with a boutique brokerage. And they said, they said, listen, there's all these different, they mainly did retail. And they said, jump into that. Although there are these other asset classes, and just kind of see what you like. And I, just with my experience at the magazine, I knew personally that would be.
Oh yeah. Cause you're already used to door knocking and going in. And
and it felt right. And I did heavy landlord rep my first year, and then sort of fell into tenant rep. And it was funny because I was repping a building and a tenant came in, small independent business woman, by the way. And this was in 2008. And she had an urban jean company, and she was looking at my space. I'm like, this is so cool. I was looking up her business. It was super cool. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing that you're doing so well. You're looking for your second space. And girl, she started crying, and she said, no, she said, I didn't have anyone who represented me the first time. And the landlord totally took advantage of me and basically like got her to sign a lease and then more or less bankrupted her. And that's when I knew. I remember exactly where I was standing. I remember the day. I remember all of it in 2000 when I knew that was my job to protect.
Oh yeah. You like, and I don't represent those kinds of landlords. I feel like while you could completely commit highway robbery against someone, I choose not to represent those like landlords. Like
nope,
my job is like, I want to make sure we get like a fair deal. Like, I want to make sure that you're protected. If you have a nail salon, there's not another nail salon there, all these like things. But yeah, I don't represent those kinds of landlords. That's crazy.
Well, and when I like representing tenants, I'll look up every single landlord if I don't already know them.
Mhm.
And because I mean, once you sign a lease, it's like you're married to them unless they really try and screw you like this guy did. And I just knew that that was my calling. And,
Mhm.
I certainly still do landlord rep and I love it. I love especially, problem solving in that regard. But with the tenant rep, I just knew, that was my niche. And this
Right.
isn't '08. We were in a bubble and, the I'd switched firms by this point, and the other firm that I worked for, they'd get calls in where people were looking for, 800 to 1,000 feet. And, a lot of the people that I worked with had been in the business for 20 plus years. And they're like, we don't need, they didn't have the time or the resources for that. I'm like, well, I've got nothing else to do. And it was such a great way, especially like you said, nail salons, in the city of Chicago, there's certain uses that are very specific as it relates to zoning. And I just like plopped myself down in City Hall and really learned zoning, what it took for permitting. I asked a lot of questions. I networked a lot, made sure I knew really good attorneys and people that could support those people that we were representing, because that's our job, is to be the resource for them. And I really loved it. And it's interesting too, because then I was referred a tenant. It was a big climbing gym it was really an industrial requirement. I know nothing about industrial. So
Mhm.
there was a guy that I worked with who had done it Phil, and he'd been doing it forever. And I said, listen, I know nothing about industrial, but I do know tenant rep. I want to be involved, and I'm kind of interested in, that section of real estate. Would you be willing to partner with me? Because I'd love to learn, about industrial and take your lead, because we should stay in our own lane. And if you don't know what you're doing, you ask for
Right.
help, right?
Right.
Because like we have a fiduciary responsibility to our clients. So he's super cute because he goes, yeah, that's funny. You should ask me this, because I have a retail strip center. So one of my clients, like it's a one-off that he owns. I don't know anything about that. And here he'd been in the business like 30 years. It's like, well, will you teach me retail? I'll teach you industrial. I'm like, yeah. What was super funny is when we both got our respective deals done and worked together, not only was it a blast working with him, I realized how fun it is to collaborate with people. I think it's also important for clients to have, we can't be everywhere at once, but we want them to feel like they can. And I think when you partner with somebody, you got all bases covered.
Yeah.
We finished the deal and, he was like, well, what'd you think? I'm like, industrial's hard. I have no interest in doing this. And so I'm just going to send things off to you. And he goes, yeah, retail's great, but yeah, no, like I'm going to refer it off to you. And it was so funny how it was just, we like respectively thought each other's was super hard. And I think that's a good lesson too. Like really hone your craft and be good and stay in your lane and do what you do, but be the best at it.
Well, and I noticed too, if you take on a deal that you're not super passionate about, or in an area that you're not certain passionate about, I've tried like different things, whether I'm partnering with people and otherwise, but that you're not going to give it your all if you're not super passionate about it. So I think you need to
No.
be passionate about the project that you're working on, the client that you're working on. And then I feel like you're going to perform to your highest extent. And then back to the 800 to 1,000 square foot people, I find that if you're setting up for success, you're getting them a great lease, they probably turn into multiple locations and grow from there.
Well, 100%. And actually funny about that, because I don't care if you're 800 feet or 80,000 feet. Everybody needs to be treated the same. And
Amen.
we all have to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
But it's funny because nobody else would help this guy. And he was so appreciative of my efforts. And we got him this great deal. He's still, that was in '08. And to this day, he's still in that space, which makes me so happy. And he was friends with a guy who was a franchisee for a big retailer. And at the time, the guy was like, I don't really like the broker that they're making me work with. And it's like, could you give me some advice? And then here I heard that this that broker was actually going into development work, and they were looking for a new broker, and they were so impressed that how I treated the franchisee, and I wound up winning the account, and the rest was history, because then I wound up doing tons of franchise work, which then, you build your resume, and then it led to more, national work, which is what I'm doing now. So obviously still in Chicago, but now I'm in all these other markets and partnering with boots on the ground brokers from this one.
Right.
I don't even care what size they were, but this one person was this beautiful spark, and you just keep treating people better and better and better and kind
Oh yeah.
of it. And so you just never know. That's why you need to, like, we need to treat everybody kindly and fairly and justly, because you just never know. You just never know.
Well, it's so funny. I still to this day, I'm super, you and I are like some of the busiest people ever.
Yeah.
We give back to, our associations. We do, so much for like our clients and really busy, but I never want to treat anybody like garbage. Like,
Right.
that's, it's just, and then not even like, let's just say you don't have time to call someone back. Cause like, you're there, but like sometimes I'll just cut. So I'll say, hey, I heard your voicemail. So sorry, I don't think I'm gonna be the right fit, but I'm gonna send you an email with like a contact for somebody. Like maybe I
Yeah.
don't have enough time to have a phone call with them, but I don't ever like leave anybody hanging. I mean, I think that's really
No.
shitty. But I can't tell you how many people I talk to every week, and they're like, "You're the fifth broker I've called, and you're the only one that has actually called or texted me back."
I get that all the time, and especially now with like you're seriously. I mean, so if you're too busy to make a phone call, like it's sending a text message, it's hell. I mean, Instagram messaging, Snapchat. I mean, I don't care. There's no excuse. Like, I got your message. I'm sorry. It's acknowledging, right? It's acknowledging others.
Right.
It blows my mind. But and I don't know what it is lately, but I'm noticing that more. Like the amount of people who are calling me, you're like the fifth broker I called, or I'll even have a tenant, who's like, I've been trying to reach this person for a long time. Like, are you kidding me? I mean, we're not that busy that we can't pick up the phone or communicate in other ways. Like, there's so many different ways.
Oh, we might have to cut this part. Hold on just a second. So, we talked about how you got into commercial real estate, and what kind of challenges have you had as a woman in commercial real estate? Like, because you've been in the industry now for almost a couple decades. Do you feel like it's getting better, or how do you feel about that?
I do, I think I say that with a little pause because, I think there was the whole, when I was in my 30s in it, like, oh, I can handle this. And, sometimes you hear the stories and you're like, well, that's not going to be me and blah, blah, blah. And I think that I see that now with some younger women. So I think there was a part of that. I look back to how it was then and how it is now. Sure, it's getting better. It is. I think some of it is too, there's awareness. There's the self-awareness, the things that have happened to us. And obviously we've talked about this where, you get to the point, I'm like, no more.
Right.
And then it's, supporting and mentoring those that are newer in the industry and or younger, and, definitely teaching them. And I am noticing, it is getting better, because I'll tell you what, there are some women, just wonderful powerhouse badasses that are, half my age. They've only been in the industry a few years, and they're speaking up and they are saying things, whether it's, to me, to other trusted women. They see what's going on. And I've had there was some things that had happened, obviously, at ICSC. It always seems to happen, right? And a couple of young gals who made a comment to me afterwards, and they were like, I was in a really uncomfortable situation. I wasn't sure how to handle it. And then they were really upset because they didn't think they handled it well or handled it at all. I'm like, you noticed that it happened and you took yourself out of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
I know sometimes we feel like we always have to say something, and we do, but
Yeah.
don't be angry with yourself because you didn't. You got yourself out of the situation. You recognized it. And right. I think we've definitely made inroads there. And I think, this newer generation of women coming up are definitely way more vocal. So it is getting better, but, until we take full control of it, like, we got to keep working on it, because it's a real problem. It's a real problem. All of it, right? Fighting for our seat at the table. Guys who think they can grab us, like they have that right to touch us. And it's just, I could go on and on.
Well, we spoke about it today. Veronica Malolos was great to put together a CCI women event tonight. And we showed our conference safety video that us Power Beacons put together. And also we got to share different like experiences, but I think sometimes things happen because you don't want to offend somebody. But I nowadays, like, I would rather like offend someone because I don't want to be in a one-on-one situation or something like that than put myself in a unsafe situation.
Well,
Because you want to think the best of intentions for people, but don't make a recipe for something potentially bad to happen.
Well, and also I used to, same thing. I used to kind of be of that mindset, like, oh, I don't want to offend someone. And then one day I was like, you offended me. Right. And I don't want to work with you. I don't care how much money I'm going to make, but you treat me this way. It's not worth it. So, and I'm so happy you showed the video. I'm so proud of that and like what we did and just the ripple effects of that, especially from our male counterparts who, stood up and support us. I mean, first and foremost, I'm going to always give Kyle and Sarah, I'm going to shout from the rooftop. I mean, that guy, he started that for us, and it's like, that's how it should be. I mean, remember those guys who are out there who are doing that, a lot of them, they have daughters, right? Do you want your daughters treated that way? This is what we're trying to do here.
Yeah. Well, I think it's awareness for girl dads. So, I mean, like, this is what's like happening, that this is what can happen, and train them appropriately so they don't put themselves into, bad situations where something can happen. And so for those of you listening to the podcast that aren't familiar, like the Power Beacons, we put out a conference safety video that was covered by Globe Street and, just giving some different tips.
By Biz Now.
And by Biz Now. And it was really like picked up. And we have, from this situation, found that there are some people that don't like that the message came out, but we'll just say hopefully their intentions are good, but probably not. No. And because why else would you care? Like,
how do you not like a message like that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Unless you're guilty. Like, yeah.
Unless you're guilty. Exactly.
Yeah. But anyways, but I mean, I think it's been great, and it's great that we can share that more openly. So you being in retail, what are some different retail trends that you're seeing, especially like post-pandemic?
So it's interesting, I was on a panel earlier this summer, excuse me, I should say. And, I've been on this panel. It's like a mid-year market update for probably the past 7 or 8 years. And for a long time, like retail, especially in the, while we're in the middle of the bubble, coming out of it. And even with everything happening during the pandemic, I always feel like we were getting so beat up. And I'm like, retail is not dying. It never has been. Retail is ever evolving, right? And like now, the vacancy rate is the lowest it's been, and it's arguably the top performing asset class. And I think it's definitely having its moment. The pandemic, I mean, was devastating, especially for a lot of retailers, specifically, hospitality, QSR restaurants, so on and so forth. And I think, it's twofold. I mean, food users are definitely having their moment. You're seeing a lot of like these chef-driven, fast casual concepts. Boutique fitness is, really coming back. People want to be in classrooms. They want to be around each other. I mean, I think because of the pandemic too, health and wellness, I mean, that's not a trend. This from now on. I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, we've seen more, I love MedTail. It's my favorite, where you've got, the medical office users, getting in the retail space, whether it's laser hair removal, non-invasive, procedures, Botox, so on and so forth. Again, wellness. And I think that that's really having a moment. We're going to see more of that, even just healthy eating and, self-care. Entertainment, especially, I mean, people are craving being around other people. So experiential, I mean, pickleball, right? Golf simulators, which I think are a great solution. The simulators are a great solution for spaces that have been on the market a while or are not necessarily main on main, because it's destination based, right? People want these memberships. They want to go, maybe it's even at 1 o'clock in the morning and you've got your locker that's got your beverage of choice, alcoholic or non-alcoholic, right? And you're going and you're just blowing off some steam and you're hitting some golf balls. And you don't necessarily need to be main on main for that. You can go anywhere. So I think just all of this, the sports and entertainment, as they call it, it's having a moment. And it's, then you've got the clicks to bricks, which is my favorite scene, which at some point you've got these online retailers. I mean,
Yeah.
really, Warby Parker was one of the first that really led the way, where at some point you need that brick and mortar space. I mean, Wayfair is opening its first brick and mortar, in the suburbs of Chicago. Radio Flyer, 108-year-old company, where
What?
that you were either buying online or on the catalog back in the day. Those of us, the Sears catalog.
Oh, I have a catalog. I still get an LL Bean catalog.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, I get two of them.
I just got mine the other day. That's so funny.
Me too.
Your fall stuff is adorable, by the way. But now Radio Flyer is going to have their first brick and mortar again in one of the suburbs of Chicago. And so, I mean, at some point, these retailers are feeling, that push to get into the physical space. And, you have larger big box retailers who are maybe like reducing their footprint, but they're still doubling where they're going because, now there's, Target's done it great. Walmart's done it great. Where they've got that whole, you can go shopping in store or you can do online pickup.
Right.
So there's a nice balance between the two. And I think we're going to see that. And of course, grocery always, since the pandemic, especially doing great.
Well, I was going to ask you, are you seeing with your retail like restaurants that has the delivery diminished or more people coming in and the delivery still happening, but it's like augmenting it? Or what are you seeing there?
It depends on the size of the restaurant. A lot of these fast casuals I work with, actually, I got a phone call the other day. One of my tenants actually wants to sublease his space because, again, a QSR, and 55% of his sales now have come from third-party delivery system, whether it's Grubhub, DoorDash, what have you. And he's like, he's in a great shopping center, so it's not going to be any issue subleasing. And he said, I actually want to move in the center. I just need a smaller space because I don't have as many people coming in and like actually physically eating. I don't need the tables anymore. And if anything, through those who aren't doing the third-party delivery, the rest are just coming and picking up anyway, and they're taking it home. That's not with every place, but delivery is definitely like a nice portion of, small, medium, and even some of these larger restaurant groups. So, and I think that a lot of them who did it right and learned the lessons during the pandemic are really able to be more nimble now. So, we're seeing a lot of them expanding.
Are you seeing more of the restaurants doing their own deliveries, or mostly it makes more sense to do the third-party deliveries?
It depends. And that's interesting because I'm always asking about third-party delivery. So I don't even know if any are using anything other than that anymore.
Yeah.
I'm guilty. I'm a DoorDasher right here, right? So Uber Eats, come on.
Yeah. It is nice. It is convenient to be able to look like, what do I want tonight? Yum, yum. So,
but people are craving that experience and they want to be back in. And I just think, I don't do office, but I do obviously have to track office trends as it relates to retail, especially when we're in a big urban environment. Are people going to the office? Does it make sense to have a sandwich shop in the Loop or soup place or what have you? And I think it's just different, with office, there's just different patterns that people have now, the days they're going in or the times that they're going in or what have you. And I think, we're tracking that in some of these bigger urban environments as it relates to, restaurants and other types of retail.
Yeah. Do you think people's schedules are different?
I do.
Than they were before? Yeah. Later and shorter or different, or just I've heard a lot about 4-day work weeks too.
Yeah. I've heard a lot about that too. I think they're just different.
It's just different. It's
different.
like a one size one fit thing.
I mean, and like as it goes, even going back to this whole urban mentality, I mean, listen, Michigan Avenue, you're walking down it, it's busy, almost uncomfortably busy. There's a lot of people, but yet, it's almost 40% vacant. A lot of I think some of it has to do with these big box retailers leaving because they don't need the footprint they need. I think, we have to address crime as a thing. I mean, it's gotten better, but I think people are wary of that. And then we have some that are just, they don't necessarily need that Michigan Avenue presence anymore. So they're
Right.
moving off of Michigan Avenue, whether it's Rush or Oak or even, into some of the neighborhoods. Some of these restaurateurs are even moving up to the suburbs. In Chicagoland, the suburbs are really having their moment because during the pandemic, everybody was buying houses and, having yards and getting yards and, just wanting their space. And it's been great for restaurants. I mean, Rick Bayless, I love him and I love all of his concepts. And for years, tons of restaurants, tons of his different concepts in the city, they're still there. But now, his newest one, he's announced he's going out to Old Orchard Mall out in Skokie. So, I mean, we've got some big restaurateurs that are really paying attention to some of these big lifestyle centers. And it's something to pay attention to.
Yeah. What about malls? So do you think more the larger albatrosses that are dying and are going to continue to die, or do you see uses going in there to revitalize them, whether pickleball or otherwise?
I do. I think, the whole 1980s enclosed mall, I mean, for a while that's been gone, but also, there are groups. I mean, my office included, we have a whole division that does adaptive reuse. They're being reimagined, and it's this whole, again, the concept of live, work, play. You're seeing it where you're going to, I mean, I love it. I've gone to some very cool lifestyle centers where I'm having a fabulous lunch at some open air concept restaurant. And if I wanted to stick around and I leave, let's say it's 4:00 in the afternoon, all of a sudden there's some live music on, this grassy area and people are playing cornhole and you can go over here and have a drink, or you can go stick around and go to a movie or play pickleball or, virtual, or do the skydiving, the ice sky, right? There's things you can do, or you can go to a comedy club. I think there's really, you can do, and by the way, if you want to live there, some of these developments have, condos and apartments and townhouses. And again, the true aspect of live, work, play, which has been really fun when you're seeing, how they're reimagining some of these big boxes.
Yeah. Well, and I see Macy's is doing some smaller models, which is kind of cool.
Yes. Yeah.
And I wonder how those are doing, So I guess we have to just see over the next few quarters, if that happens. I didn't see JCPenney's doing anything like that yet. Have you?
No, and they're gone, right? And so I think it's about being nimble and,
Well, that's what you said, is retail's not dead. It evolves. You either evolve or you're dead.
So it's funny too, because, this panel I referenced that I was on, it was for IREM, and every year I just love them so much because they always have us on this one in Chicago. The Chicago chapter is so fun. And, they'll have, they were nice enough to ask me back every year. So they got a retail expert, they've got office, they've got industrial, and then they've got, multifamily. And it's funny because over the years, the industrial person, they and I wind up having more and more in common because you're seeing some of these vacant big boxes being scooped up by, Amazon or others that, for supplies, right?
Oh yeah. Last mile or whatever.
Yeah. And, distribution centers, my brain today. And again, it's a great solution for an otherwise, huge Sears that's just sitting there rotting away. And all of a sudden it's creating this revitalization in the center, and it's kind of fun and it's exciting.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what would be your advice to the next generation in commercial real estate?
Oh, I love it when people ask me that question, because my first thing is ask lots of questions.
Mm-hmm.
And make sure you're always, partnering with somebody, and you're learning things the right way. Talk less and listen more, right? And I think that would be my greatest piece of advice. And follow your passion. And if something doesn't feel right, follow your gut too, right? If you feel and see a red flag, no matter what that is, whether it's, for women, it's women's safety, but also just being newer in the industry, I guess it's everybody's safety, personally, but also if you're in the middle of a deal or you're working with someone, they don't feel right, follow that red flag. Or if something doesn't feel right, because that's, following your gut, that's never led me astray. And I think that's, really important. And especially when you're looking at firms to work with, no matter what part of commercial real estate
Oh
you're in,
yeah.
I think it's asking lots of questions, and you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. That's always been my train of thought, because once you join a firm, you hope to be a part of the family, and goals and ethics and all of it need to align, right?
Oh, that's so key. Like, I mean, I think that don't just talk to the CEO, talk to the people that work within there on the front lines. What are their impressions? What's the reputation of the firm? I think it has to be a value proposition, both sides, where, the company has to be getting some value from the person that they're investing time, money, effort into. But likewise, the person joining the brokerage needs to feel like that. And then that way you can grow together. Because I mean, I think growing together is so key. So,
and even if you're researching a firm, and again, it doesn't matter what asset class or what part of real estate you're in or whatever, people leave, and for no other reason that sometimes just offer different opportunities somewhere. And I think it's even those folks who have left, call them, ask them what their experience was.
Right.
I think that's really important. And I think the most important thing when you're new, by the way, for everybody, but I think especially once you first start, find a mentor, or in my opinion, mentors. I have mine, I call them like my board of advisors, and they're different ages. I actually read an article once that said you should have a mentor who's younger than you. And so you learn a lot from them, right?
Right.
So mine are different ages, genders, religious backgrounds, sexual orientations. I mean, they're really like, it's the real rainbow gamut of my, advisors, different parts of the industry. One of my best mentors is, residential badass. I have a gentleman that I've leaned on for years, and he's been this industrial rock star for quite literally 60 years. He's almost in his 90s, and he doesn't need to work, but he just loves it.
Oh, yeah.
And has just been so good to me. He sees things so differently. And I easily have probably half a dozen in just all aspects. And, I lean on them to give me advice. And I do believe we've talked about this. We've talked about this with the power beacons. Again, those who are newer and younger and getting into this, finding the mentors, ask for it. Ask, can you be my mentor? Will you be my mentor?
Right.
Help me, right? But there's mentorship, and then there's sponsorship. And, and I love that too, because it's that person who says, don't just mentor me, but take me along with you, sponsor me, show me, and guide me. And, there's that accountability on both ends. And I think I'm so grateful for that, especially with the power beacons, right? What we've all been able to do for each other and support each other. It's finding that squad, that group. And it's fun to see newer folks, women especially, but even guys too, in the industry. Actually, both. In Chicago, I have a couple younger, newer brokers who are in my office, and they were telling me that there's this group, this handful, everybody who's been in the industry about the same amount of time, and we're talking dozens, and they're all texting each other, they're all doing their separate meetups, and I know who a lot of them are. And then as newer people come in, they're being invited into this. This is the next generation, and they're there and they're helping and supporting each other. And I love that, because that was us once. And, then all of a sudden people wind up getting married and having babies and making moves and doing this and life happening. And they're all doing it with each other. And I think it's super, super cool.
Oh,
I know. I wish I was cool enough to be a part of their group.
You're what?
I want to be cool enough to be a part of that group.
Right. Let me in. Let me in.
Yeah, but they're great. And I think that's, find your people, find those who have your back and support you. And they don't necessarily need to be the person whose desk is right next to yours. Right. I mean, you're in Florida. Yeah. I'm actually at my house in Minnesota right now.
Right.
We got each other's backs 300%.
Oh, I know. I called you anytime.
By the way, he said, tell Amy I say hi.
Who did?
Eddie. I love him, right? That's our people.
Yeah. I know. It's so amazing. And I think too, my advice for mentees or anyone is if you think of someone, follow up with them. Think of them. Just drop them a line and just say, hey, Siri, send Deena Zimmerman a text and like say hello. Like even if it's just something stupid. I had like a bad run of people I thought of for a couple years, and then I didn't reach out and something was going on, and that's why it like bounced into my head. But like whether you're like a mentee or like a friend with someone, I think keeping these connections and these relationships alive, it's almost like a fire. Like you almost have to like kind of tend to it and like feed it. Otherwise it can completely like burn out and then you're starting back over again.
Well, and it's the whole, like, I was actually, Eddie, this is a great example. When I was, you and I were texting earlier when we were getting ready for this, and he popped into my head, and that was the second time this week. And when people pop into my head, I just feel like that's, very spiritual about that. Like, God has given me this sign. So I sent him a text, and I'm like, hey, just thinking about you, miss you, love you. We always do that. I'm like, I know we've been looking for a time to connect. Let's do that next week. I was thinking about you because I'm about ready to do a podcast with Amy. And, and I can see the text popping up on my phone or my computer when you and I are talking. And he's like, tell Amy I say hi. And as you're talking. And I think it just feels good when somebody's thinking about you.
Right.
Like, hey, I'm thinking about you, whatever. But on that note, that actually goes back another piece of advice. If somebody's giving you the time to meet with you, there's nothing more powerful than a thank you follow-up. For at the very least, send an email. But the best piece of advice, Alex Ruggieri, actually, he's with SVN. And I learned this from him back in 2007. Write a thank you note. And do it as soon as you're done.
Oh, yeah. Like right here.
That's okay. And right there's the key, because I was literally just going to say that. It is having that stationary, whatever it is, and do something fun. It doesn't need to be your company letterhead.
No, don't do company letterhead, in my opinion.
I love flamingos and I love macaroons. So I have like these cute little cards that just spoke to me. But I always make sure.
I have cards for everything. Great job on that thing you did.
Yes. But after you've met with somebody, like the minute I'm done,
done.
A coffee meeting or a lunch, I come back and I instantly, especially when you're feeling it, like, thank you, Amy, thank you so much for your time. I love that we talked about this. I mean, it means.
Do you know, like Corey Zelnick wrote me a note thanking for me to be on his podcast, and like he was really supportive, but I may not get to it right away, but at the end of the week, I'm like, okay, was there anything I need to send like a thank you for, or like I didn't get to, because sometimes I don't get to it, but. Or, sometimes if I really am really pressed, then I'll do a text will suffice if you have to do a text.
But if you get the chance, thank you.
Something. Oh no, I've had the last few mentees have been not.
Thank you. We interviewed a guy in my firm,
and I'm sorry, like
he never said thank you for the interview. I know.
I mean, I got a call from Bob Knackle, who's closed something like 2,339 deals and over $20 billion worth of deals. I sent him my Beyond Bulletin. He called to thank me and give me advice on it. So if you're a mentee and you can't take the time, but this titan of commercial real estate can, there's a disconnect there.
Right there. If a titan of real estate can, everybody's got plenty of time.
Well, and it goes back to, again, calling people back, treating people with respect. If you do those things, I wrote it down here, kindly, fairly, justly. It goes for all of your relationships, whether clients, whether family, whether anything. So that's been great. So we can talk forever, but we can't.
Thank you so much for this. I know. I forgot that. No offense to those who are listening. I actually forgot we're on a podcast. I'm just loving this conversation so much.
Well, I think that's the way a podcast should be, is like you're having these authentic conversations and you just enjoy. So how do people, was there anything that we didn't touch on that you want to chat about? Because we could always do a part 2.
I always do a part 2. I think the last thing you did bring up, we only have so much time in a day. You're absolutely right. I think there's a lot of people, I've certainly had people say to me, especially during the pandemic, I had a client who called me and he said to me, I know you're always out there and you're networking and doing your thing. And he goes, I'm just checking in. I'd gone through a divorce, so I was home alone during the pandemic. And he was like, I've just been thinking about you a lot because, you know, I hope you're doing okay by yourself. And I'm like, oh, let me tell you something. First of all, you're like, this is so great. Like, this is a landlord I represent, and he's just one of my favorite human beings. But to be thinking about me and to pick up the phone in that moment just because he was thinking about me. Going back to what we were just talking about, when you think about someone, reach out. But it was so kind because like he was worried about me, and I just, oh my God, I could almost cry. That was so sweet. But I said to him, I'm like, here's the deal. I said, first of all, I got my pug, my beloved Rocco. I go, we're good. And I said, actually, little known about me, I'm an extrovert introvert. Like when I'm out there, I'm out there. But I'm also one of those.
We're the best at being out there, by the way.
We are the, you know what? Cheers to that. We're the very best for being out there. Clink. Sorry, when I cheers, I gotta take a sip. But when I'm by myself, I crave alone time. That's when I plug myself back in, I recharge, and I take that time for myself. And I really own and honor that because burnout's a real thing.
It is.
And if, we have to remember our clients are really important and taking care of them is really important. But if you don't put your oxygen mask on first and take care of yourself, because at the end of the day, we're also not brain surgeons. We're not doing heart surgery. We're not saving lives. We're helping people make their lives better. But we have to take care of ourselves first. Right. So I think that's one thing. But that was a little random tangent. Not everybody's a master networker like you and I are. But find the thing you're really passionate about and do that volunteerism and whatever it is, right? I'm wildly involved with the commercial side of National Association of Realtors and obviously with the Power Beacons. And there's the Goldie B. Wolf Miller Women Leaders in Real Estate Initiative that I'm passionate about, as I am Crew, because these are things I'm just really passionate about. And I think anybody who follows me on social knows how much I love animals. And I, will raise money, do a run, volunteer with any rescue because I love it. Find the thing you love, whether it's coaching your kids' baseball or you're part of your church or your synagogue, or if you're like interested in politics or just making your neighborhood better and it's your local chamber. Just go do something and get involved, but don't do it just to go get the business. It's not about that. You having a good time and you're passionate about it, that just winds up coming because people connect with you.
Oh, it absolutely does. Like, I don't go into it for any reason but to just meet some really cool people and do some great things. I call it doing good in the hood.
Well, and it's going back to Veronica Malalos. I love her because she's really involved with NAR and she's the chair of a committee this year. And it's one of the coolest committees and she's so passionate about it. And I'm really lucky because I'm the commercial liaison this year for NAR. And so those are the committees that fall under my purview. So I attend those meetings as support. And the one that they had in DC was so lively that it was standing room only. And quite frankly, we complained because we should have had a bigger room because the topics of conversation, the research that they put into commercial trends, for example, and it was great, but she's so passionate about it. I'm sitting there listening to her. Like, I am lucky to be in this room with somebody who is sharing something that they so clearly care about. Yeah. And I look at her, I know her from the business side, and to see her on this side, I'm like, what a badass.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Well, this has been awesome. Yes, how do people get a hold of you? Is like Instagram, Facebook, email? What do you like?
Oh, all of the above. I prefer email and LinkedIn, actually.
Okay.
What is your thank you note? That'll get me to call you back. And as you can tell my background, I clearly love pink. So
what is your email?
It's Deena, Deena @baumrealty.com, and it's BAUM realty.com.
Yeah. Oh my God. So it's awesome. Well, this has been so fun. We're going to have to probably do a part 2. And so this has been awesome. And this is Amy Calandrino with the Performance Mindset Podcast. Be sure to download, like, subscribe, all the things. And looking forward to seeing you all in the next episode.